It's never been attempted before. To claim a dragon, you must also be prepared to die.
My uncle is a challenge I welcome, if he dares face me.
You have the arrogance of youth. Have the indignities of your childhood not yet sufficiently been avenged?
Perhaps the gods will favor us.
If Daemon prevails in the Riverlands, I no longer have the numbers to challenge him.
You must see in me a ruler, and the symbols of authority, the shield and the sword.
You will still never match the strength of the Green Armies. We need Daemon.
I must now proceed as if I stand alone.
It is my fault that you have forgotten to fear me.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 6 trailer video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. There are a couple major WTF moments that they're teasing throughout the episode, but the major thing they're teasing, especially at the beginning of the trailer, is the Sowing of the Seeds, which is basically the show introducing the concept of the Dragonseeds, which Ulf White actually mentioned out loud in a previous episode in that same tavern with Deanna, the girl that we just saw at the end of the episode.
Dragonseed must watch his own neck when he has no white-cloaked guardsman to do it for him.
That was the girl that Aegon assaulted and theoretically impregnated and Alicent made take the moon tea, and then basically gave her a bag of gold coins and told her to get out. Go live yourself your best life being a tavern wench. The whole concept of the Dragonseeds is that they're meant to be people with Targaryen blood, mostly Targaryen bastards, but also people throughout the family that just have a bit of Targaryen or Valyrian blood. Really, it's the Valyrian blood that's more important, but technically it comes from their descending from a Targaryen ancestor at some point. Really good example of this is actually Robert Baratheon is part Targaryen, like a little bit Targaryen through his grandmother, which is why his claim was supported throughout the realm after Robert's rebellion. Why so many of the great lords thought that he would be the best ruler, the best choice, because he was part Targaryen. They liked the idea of having a Targaryen still on the throne who wasn't an actual Targaryen. Now, at the end of episode 5, when Jace and Rhaenyra are sort of teasing the idea, going back and forth about all the different members of the family that married outside into other great houses, the idea is that there's many people across the realm with some Targaryen or Valyrian blood in their veins. And there's no real set amount what it takes to actually bond with the dragon, but there is like a baseline. So just because you actually have Targaryen or Valyrian blood in your veins doesn't mean you can automatically bond with the dragon. It just means you have the potential to bond with the dragon. The way the shows have always done the dragons is they portray them as sort of like really large cats who will kill you if they feel like it. Like they could just as soon kill you as they would bond with you. They even said during the episode that Rhaena tried to bond with one of the dragons at Dragonstone, so it'd either be Vermithor or Silverwing, and nearly got killed when she tried. And she's like 3/4 Targaryen. One of the funny moments during the episode, though, was when they actually mentioned House Tarly. So you have to imagine Samwell riding on a dragon, but this is like way back earlier in the timeline. Samwell himself in present day doesn't have nearly enough Valyrian blood in his veins to actually bond with the dragon. But at the beginning of the trailer, they're in the Dragonmont, and you hear Rhaenyra's voiceover. They're just sort of cutting footage on top of other footage from totally different scenes, where she said it's never been attempted before. Like, this is a really big deal. One of the other real big deals is the way that bastards in the Targaryen family were treated across time. We haven't seen her on the show yet, but Silverwing used to be ridden by Queen Alysanne, Jaehaerys' queen. Sometime after she became queen, they stopped honoring Targaryen bastards, whereas previously it was actually a really honorable thing around the realm to actually have Targaryen blood in your veins. So if it was found out that you were a Targaryen bastard in some way, you were actually elevated to a much higher position. You wouldn't be part of the actual family line or anything like that, like you wouldn't inherit anything. But the Targaryen family would welcome you with open arms. It would actually be like a really good thing. As opposed to after Queen Alysanne, where it became a really bad thing. That's why Ulf White is saying, shh, you gotta be quiet. You can't tell anybody that I'm a Targaryen bastard. We gotta watch our backs. So that's why you don't have everybody around the realm trying to tell people that they are part Targaryen somehow. And it looked like Jace and Rhaenyra were going to do a bit of a research project to check out the family tree and see which extended members are alive in present day and might qualify to be a Dragonseed. But you also have all the bastards, the people that wouldn't be part of the family tree. So anybody this season you've seen them spend a lot of time on, weirdly, like new characters that don't seem like they bear a lot on the actual plot, it's probably because they're one of the Dragonseeds that they'll introduce. Ulf White is one of the few that just said it out loud. Hugh Hammer is one of the other ones too. That's why they keep showing him, because they also want to show you the plight of the small folk, and they're using him to do it. This scene of them in the Dragonmont also seems like it's part of a similar scene that's just broken up through different pieces throughout the trailer. Seems like them summoning Seasmoke. I know there'll be a lot of questions about this too, like, weren't they just talking about Silverwing at the end of episode 5? Jace was talking about Silverwing and Vermithor. Why wouldn't they show us Silverwing in the trailer? They actually included this shot of this particular dragon in like the very first teaser from season 2. Ryan Condal, after that, said that it was meant to be Seasmoke, not Silverwing. So apparently Silverwing is going to look totally different. We see Rhaenyra with the Black Council. They're probably just discussing the idea of searching for other Dragonseeds out there. Like, how are we going to go about finding all these people? When she says you have to also be prepared to die because the dragons might not like you just because you have Valyrian blood, so you might get eaten. And a couple of the people we probably see they introduce probably will get eaten. There'll be a couple red shirts out there like, oh, hey, you have Valyrian blood in your veins. Let's try it out. Chomp, just take a little snack there. Then we hear Criston Cole talking to the Green Council. They're worried about Daemon's army that he's trying to marshal in the Riverlands. If he's successful, it's going to cause them a bunch of problems. But up to this point, he hasn't really seemed that successful. Like, the River Lords seemed really pissed off at him. But here in this scene, it looks like he's speaking with Alys Rivers. He seems really pleased with himself. So things might be looking up for him, like he might find some opportunity. We'll see. There's another funny, awkward scene between Criston Cole and Alicent. Like, you can see the back of Alicent's head here in the courtyard, and he's smiling at her, but I can guess that she is definitely not smiling at him. The last time they spoke to each other in episode 5, she basically told him to keep my name out of your mouth. Then we hear from Aemond, basically saying, Criston Cole, don't worry about Daemon. I welcome a challenge from him. So they're really trying to hype up Daemon versus Aemond, Caraxes versus Vhagar. There's so much stuff that we cannot talk about just because it gets into book spoilers, so we won't get too deep into that. Just the idea that Aemond really wants to fight Daemon. Daemon probably doesn't really care about Aemond that much. He does want to get rid of Vhagar just because it's a big threat. Like, biggest, most powerful dragon, of course he wants to get rid of that threat. Daemon is mostly just laser focused on the Iron Throne. Aemond, it seems like, is laser focused on Harrenhal and also Daemon tangentially, but mostly on Harrenhal. His big thing is that he wants to take the castle back. That's why they had that line of dialogue between Daemon and Alys Rivers in episode 5. You don't want to meet Aemond One-Eye, beware him. Just because he's so obsessed with Harrenhal, he will probably show up at some point on Vhagar. Then we see a day shot of Harrenhal. I love the way they're giving us different views of Harrenhal, like other really big locations in the Game of Thrones universe that we didn't see during the original main show or during season 1. This time we also get a day shot of this part of the castle. It's basically the Godswood part of the castle. It's meant to be huge in a context of A Song of Ice and Fire. Way bigger than the Godswood at Winterfell. This is the Weirwood tree that he woke up mysteriously after that first Weirwood vision, like, what, how'd I get here? You see the bay, the God's Eye, essentially, in the Isle of Faces. That will be very important to what Aemond was talking about, challenging Daemon. That's the reason why they cut these two scenes together. They're kind of winking behind the camera like, everybody start thinking about the God's Eye. I also love the way that Caraxes is just kind of hanging out here by the water, like just in case he wants to go for a little swim, have a little drink, maybe try to catch some fish down in there somewhere. It's not clear where Daemon is going though, but it looks like he's packed his bags and he's going to hop on Caraxes and take a little flight. Then we get a scene of Aemond going to talk to Aegon, and Aegon looks conscious and he's afraid of Aemond, like, oh, I remember what you did to me. There were so many questions about this after episode 4, like, would Aegon even remember just because he's going to be so hopped up on Milk of the Poppy for the rest of his life? I assumed they would keep him catatonic for more episodes, but the show is just blowing through the timeline way faster than the book timeline. We heard him whisper mommy at the end of episode 5. Very sad, so it sounds like in this episode he will be able to whisper something to Aemond, but it's curious to see what Aemond is here doing. Maybe he's just messing with him a little bit. Like, now I'm the one in power and I get to mess with you, where you messed with me my entire life. There are a couple lines of dialogue from Alicent later in the episode where she basically takes him to task for that. Like, how much is enough? Like, when will you eventually feel like you've gotten revenge for the way people treated you when you were a little kid? The way that her conversation with him makes it seem is that he's doing all this just because he wants revenge against everyone for the way he was treated as a child, which might have been true at the very beginning when he was a bit younger, but I think the idea is that it's kind of twisted itself into something more inside of him. Like it's not purely just him being angry at everyone for being mistreated as a child. Now it just seems like he loves this kind of violence. Then we see Rhaenyra hopping on Cyrax and going for a ride. Been a while since we've seen her on her dragon. She was complaining to Mysaria during episode 5 about how her small council was trying to keep her trapped on Dragonstone. We see her pick up a sword in the Dragonstone library, just the idea that she wants to be a more active participant in what's going on with the Dance of the Dragons here. And we have the Lannister army at the Golden Tooth here. I think that's what this is meant to be, the Golden Tooth. They're slowly making their way out of the Westerlands, and eventually once they meet Criston Cole's forces, or Aemond's forces, however you want to think about it, they'll become a real threat to the Blacks. So part of the idea is that they're looking for all these Dragonseeds and trying to get them together before that happens. Jace correctly tells Rhaenyra, whatever's going on between the two of you right now, we need Daemon in Caraxes. He's just too powerful, too much of an asset to go unused. We see that Corlys has officially accepted his position as Hand of the Queen, and he's at the small council, but he's by himself here, while Rhaenyra is also saying that she feels like she has to be alone in all this. But I think the idea is that's more of a metaphor, that she stands alone with her small council, like she doesn't have a lot of allies on her small council, the way that she used to with Rhaenys. Then this is actually a really curious scene. You see Rhaena with what looks like Joffrey, like you see like the top of his head because he's so short, but he does have the brown hair, so it would be Joffrey. And because she looks so surprised and a little bit afraid, they might be watching Sheepstealer, the wild dragon, or one of the wild dragons. I've had a theory for a while now, I've been talking about in several videos, that they might change the book plot and give her the Nettles plot, where Rhaena winds up being the one to claim Sheepstealer up in the Vale, because back during episode 1, all the small folk were saying how they were having a problem with the dragons eating all their sheep, so that might be happening up in the Vale. Just a big old dragon snacking on all the different livestock all over the place. They've changed some of the timeline a little bit in the sizes of some of the different dragons, but this is how big Sheepstealer is meant to be in the books. You can see he's one of the biggest dragons, but not quite as big as Vermithor. So if Rhaena were able to claim Sheepstealer, it would be a huge, huge deal. This also might pay off one of Daemon's Weirwood visions when Rhaena was telling him, have you taken care of our girls? Like, have you checked on them recently? If she were to claim Sheepstealer, that's like the most proud she could make Daemon ever, and he's kind of been neglecting her growing up because she hasn't been a dragon rider. But to be fair, it seems like he's been kind of a terrible father to all of his children, even his children with Rhaenyra. But with the way that House of the Dragon Season 2 is pacing all of its episodes out, it might be a couple episodes before we actually see her claim Sheepstealer, if that is going to be the case. Like this episode might be her just seeing Sheepstealer, and she doesn't actually claim the dragon till a future episode. You can let me know in the comments, like, what is she looking at here? Like, it just seems like it has to be a really big dragon. Then they cut together two different scenes of Rhaenyra and Daemon from like completely different places, just to kind of mislead you. The person she's yelling at, saying that she has to remind him to be afraid of her, because she's a big dragon rider, she does have a lot of power available to her, they should be afraid of her, is one of the lords on her small council. The scene with Daemon looks like he's creeping up to the Iron Throne, so it might be part of another Weirwood vision. It seems like he's just looking at the Iron Throne here, but he's not actually in King's Landing. Then we see what looks like a giant riot at King's Landing at the set, with Alicent and Helena running for their lives. This is probably a result of Daemon locking the city gates and not letting anybody in or out. And because their food supply is running out too, so everybody's slowly starting to starve, and things are getting really bad, so of course the small folk are going to riot. All I will say here is beware the small folk. This is all part of what Mysaria was talking about with Rhaenyra during episode 5, about how there are other ways to fight wars. You can have other people do that kind of work for you. She was basically telling Rhaenyra to use the small folk against the Greens, basically turn them against the Greens, sow more discontent. Also that Rhaenyra can be the one to swoop in, literally and metaphorically with her dragon, to save the small folk, and they'll cheer her on as she does it. Now we'll see if it winds up happening that way. That's just Mysaria's idea for her plan. But part of the idea is that you'll see things get worse and worse and worse for the small folk as things get on, driving them to get angrier and crazier and crazier. Then we see what looks like Seasmoke coming up to meet Jace and Rhaenyra. A lot of questions about this. Will Seasmoke be able to bond with another dragon rider if Laenor is still alive? Did they secretly tell us in a previous episode that Laenor was dead because Seasmoke was cooing all sadly in the sky, like he seems super lonely? Would a dragon sense that its rider died if they were way far overseas? There's always the potential the show did that, killing him off screen. I don't know that they would necessarily do that. I think we're not meant to see him again. But hopefully they'll clarify that before the end of the season when we finally see Seasmoke's new rider. Also hoping we get to see Vermithor and Silverwing, just because we've never actually seen Silverwing on the show before, and they've been teasing Vermithor all season. Silverwing and Vermithor used to be ridden by Queen Alysanne and King Jaehaerys, and they were also a mated pair. The dragons were a mated pair. But since both of them died at different dates, nobody has since claimed the dragons, probably because it sounds like Rhaena tried to claim one of them and it almost ate her, and it's probably tried to eat other people too. So it's not that people haven't tried to claim Silverwing or Vermithor since then, it's just they haven't been able to. There was also a line about that when they were talking about Melee's history with Rhaenys and how she claimed Melee's when she was older out from under Daemon's nose because Daemon wasn't able to do it. For whatever reason, Melee's just was not vibing with Daemon. Like, nope, not doing it, not gonna happen. So that's why Caraxes then became Daemon's dragon. There'll probably be some more clips or some more footage later this week. If they drop anything more, of course, I'll do another video. Let me know in the comments if you have any specific requests for bonus videos. I'm also going to try and bring back Q&A videos too for the last couple of episodes. So if you have any special questions that you want me to include in those, just put them in the comments below. There's also been a lot of questions and confusion as to whether or not Sunfyre is actually dead. So what could be the case is that Criston Cole might just be an idiot and think that Sunfyre is dead or dying, and because Aegon will eventually bounce back, in a way, so to speak, like kind of bounce back. He's never going to be 100% like he was before. That could also wind up happening with Sunfyre too, like Sunfyre could slowly crawl its way back too. The way that Criston Cole talked about it, he thought that Sunfyre was basically dead, but the way they convey things in the episode, you're just getting characters' opinions on things, so it could just be the case that Criston Cole is an idiot and doesn't really understand dragons and how resilient they are. But if Sunfyre is eventually able to fly again, it's not clear if they'd show us that before the end of the season or wait till like season 3 or something like that. They're moving so fast with the timeline, they might speedrun Aegon's recovery, and if Sunfyre is going to recover, they might speedrun that too. Everybody click here for my full episode 5 video, and click here for all my other House of the Dragon episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.